Welcome to Bay City State Park. Bay City State Park is located in the town of Bay City. It is located on Saginaw Bay, so around the base of the thumb area in Michigan. And at 2,400 acres, it's got a lot here.
Yeah, and it's not even just the number of acres of land. There's just a lot here. There's a campground. There's a huge day use area, and you were playing around in a bunch of stuff just in the day use. Yeah.
It's got a really nice wooden playscape with like handlebar things to climb and rope swings and all sorts of things. It's a huge playscape area, as well as a splash pad. Now, it was a little chilly today, so there wasn't anybody out on the splash pad, but we did make the water go on so we could play around in it a little bit.
Yeah, but it looks like when you look at the size of the parking lot, it looks like it's a very popular place. I mean, it's right near Bay City. I can see where it would be a nice place to, bring the kids and hang out on a hot summer day. You can let them run around on the playscape, get all hot and overheated, and then take them over to the splash pad and,
douse them off.
Shower them off, and then let them run through the splash pad to let them cool off. And so that could be fun. Plus, it's right on the bay. So there is also beach here as well.
There is. There's a couple different sections of beach. One area kind of actually goes to a little marshland area, but then there is a sign that says swimming beach, kind of further off to the north area. So that's a little bit more wide open and sandy as opposed to the wet marshy beach area.
Yeah, Bay City State Park is built in a very wet area, wetlands, marshes, swamps, whatever you want to call them. They have them here. And we saw that everywhere from the day use area to the campground. We've had so much rain lately, and it's just got nowhere to go because it's already a marshy wetland area. There's a lot of stuff where there's standing water and it's really squishy and flooded.
Speaking of things being squishy, when we drove through the campground, we noticed there were quite a number of sites that were in standing water and a lot of mud. Now, I don't want to scare anybody away because the campground actually looks really, really nice. And the majority of the sites were not that way. But a few of them up along the woods, I guess, definitely had some standing water in them.
Yeah, I would say kind of the outer road or the outer loop of the campground, near the woods, probably more wet. It was a lot of standing water, some mud, different sites. Some of them were, I thought, impassable. I don't think they're able to use them right now.
I kind of would hope they weren't putting people in those sites because your trailer would literally be like in a little lake at the moment.
Yeah. But along the center, like the main loop sort of in the center of the campground, it's mostly grass from what I remember from seeing that. And nice big sites in a lot of places. Now, there are different size sites and some are smaller, especially on the outer loop. But that center part seemed like much larger sites than we've seen in some of the other parks here in the thumb area.
Yeah, they had some good sized space to spread out. So whether you have a big unit or you just have a bunch of people camping with you in kind of a family area, you pull your sites together. There are, I think I said 5 or 6 that are paved sites that are listed as being ADA accessible. So that's nice. So at least from that standpoint, those people will not be in the mud.
Yeah, well, and the other thing too, what really gave it away in the sites being much larger, at least in the center, is when you first open the campground map, you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, there are a ton of campsites here. And then when you go and you count, you realize there's not that many based on the size of the campground itself. So that means you've got bigger sites. That's kind of my point there.
You got a lot of space. I mean, it looks like a really nice campground.
Yeah, the center part where there are bigger spaces, not a lot of privacy between sites, that kind of thing. There's not as many trees in the middle. That's why the sites can be bigger. But if you have a larger rig, that might be a good spot to put yourself.
As well as looks like two really nice modern bathrooms that have been upgraded. So got that and very and they seem to be equal distance within the park, so everybody doesn't have to walk too far to get to the bathrooms, which is always really nice.
Yeah, that was good to see that. Oh, and if you don't have your own rig yet, this is one of the parks where they have a pop-up that you can rent.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice to have that available.
As well as a couple mini cabins. So there's always options no matter what you have or what you want to work with if you want to try something new. So if you're in a tent and you want to try a pop-up, this is a good place to come and do that. Or if you don't have anything, you still want to get out, the cabins are always a nice option. So I really do like that Michigan provides all sorts of different options for you because they just want you to get outside and we want you to get outside. Just hope you're taking that opportunity to find out which park you like and just getting out there because there's just so much going on.
One of the major features of Bay City State Park is Tobacco Marsh. I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but I think that's how you say it.
We're going with it anyway.
We're going to go.
We forgot to ask.
We're going to go with Tobacco Marsh. But there is a nice little trail that you can take. It's about 3/4 of a mile from the parking lot once you get to the parking lot in this area. And you can get out to an observation tower that you can climb. But there's also other trails in here that you can take.
Correct. There's a 2-mile loop, which has actually both observation towers are accessible from it. And then there's a few side trails that you can take to some other just observation platforms. And it connects with a different paved trail that runs more along the water. So all told, I think we're thinking probably maybe 4 to 5 miles of trails within the entire park system. Whether it's the ones that are out here in the marsh or the ones, there's a couple nature trails right in the day use area by the visitor center. The one thing that we wanted to note though is they are pretty much like accessible at all times in terms of, we've been saying it's very wet and it's definitely, we're walking through a marsh, but the trail has been dry. It's sort of a combination of crushed gravel and dirt. And other than one little section where it was a little muddy right along the edges, there's no standing water out here. So that's really nice.
The trail is surprisingly dry. I thought there'd be a lot more water out here. So that was good to see.
Yeah, I guess I'd say just as a tip, like we're some hikers. It's still probably a good idea because it is that crushed gravel. I don't think flip-flops would probably be a good idea, especially because you got to climb the tower as well. And it's a couple, 3 or 4 flights up. But yeah, otherwise I was, really surprised that it was as dry as it was out here. But it's been really nice. The tower gives you a kind of view over of the marsh. There wasn't a whole lot to see today, just a few birds out there. But at different times of the year, this is one of those places where you totally see a lot of different wildlife, depending on the season.
Bring your binoculars if you're going to come out here to spend any time. The one guide told us before we hiked out here, we went to observation tower number 2, and that's the one that's got a little more of an open expanse to see things. Observation tower 1 is a little more closed in once the trees grow in and get their leaves, so you don't see quite as much. It's more of a narrow field, I think.
Yeah, but then I think those observation platforms, which were on a different loop that we did not go on, are closer down to the water and marsh itself. So you're going to get a different view of what it is. But it was a really nice trail. There's quite a few people out here. You can bring your bike. We did notice that. At least it doesn't say you can't ride your bike. And we saw a lot of people out here with their bikes. So we're going to go with that you can. Sure.
It's fine. It's wide enough for walkers and bikers to get along well out here. And it's a nice flat trail. So even though you think, well, it's 3/4 of a mile, out, and then you got to walk 3/4 of a mile back, nice flat trail, easy to walk on. So a lot of people can come out here and enjoy this.
Yeah.
To me, a big part of Bay City State Park is the day use activities that are here. And that's not surprising. There aren't a lot of, hikes into the woods and that kind of thing on long trails, but it's in a more metropolitan area. It is, when you consider it's the Tri-Cities, Bay City, Saginaw, Midland, there's quite a large population that it could draw here. And I think you're probably going to see that on hot summer days once summer arrives here in Michigan.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure this is one we would come back to, even though the campground did look really nice, but there isn't really a whole lot here to do. Except for I think if you have kids, it would definitely be a place to come. Like we said, with the playscape and the splash pad and the beach, there's definitely a lot of kid activities to do here. And so I think with that and the shelters that you can reserve, the one thing I noticed though, is that the campground is across the street from the day use area. So if you want to go to the beach or you want to use the place areas, you're going to have to hike across the road. I suppose that's a downside or an upside, depending on, it also means you're away from the day use area. So you've got your own privacy at the campground, but it is a little bit of a hike or a drive across the road. But it's huge. I mean, it really is. It's a really big park. And so if you live around here, this is definitely a place that you'd probably come and hang out. And if you're driving through, stop and check it out. Like I said, if you've got kids and you're on a drive, that splash pad is going to be awesome. I mean,
the playscape, the splash pad, I think you're right. I think that, we come at it a little bit differently. It's just the two of us. We love to go off in the middle of the woods and sort of get lost. But if you were living in one of the cities around here and wanted to kind of get away from the city, and enjoy a little taste of nature and have some place for your kids to burn off excess energy, this would be the place to do it.
Yeah, I agree. So, don't discount it just because it's not a place we would come back to, but I think we're a different kind of, we're a different kind of traveler. We do like being out by ourselves in nature with the mountain biking and the cross-country skiing, that kind of thing. But this is really pretty and it's different. So definitely check it out just because you never know what you're going to find that works for you.
But figure out what works for you. Get out there. Keep on trekking.
And we'll see you out there. you have kids, it would definitely be a place to come. Like we said, the big playscape and the splash pad, definitely kid-friendly activities. Apparently, I can't say that word.
But figure out what works for you.